In 2020, the worldwide coronavirus pandemic caused many long-running festivals to close for the first time in their history, and that included the world-famous Brimfield Antique Show. This huge antique fair had to turn away the crowds of visitors as late as the spring of 2021 before finally reopening again in summer of 2021. And in September of 2021, the vendors were back and the crowds returned. This meant it was time to head back to Brimfield in search of vintage cast iron. I like arriving at Brimfield in the early morning to avoid the traffic, and some vendors open at the crack of dawn. There were reminders to be careful even now, and I was wearing a mask during my visit. But despite this, it was a picture-perfect day, and cast iron seemed to be everywhere, even if a lot of it was overpriced. The best reason to come to Brimfield is to see many amazing things you may have never seen before. It seemed like around every corner there was something unusual that caught the eye, and even if you don't spend a lot, simply browsing here makes for an amazing and fun time.
Eat out there. Yeah. Wonderful. For food here?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. Oh, good to know, though.
However, it does require some digging around and exploring to find good bargains here, especially with cast iron. Many vendors all over the place were displaying at least a few pieces, and nearly all of it was expensive. The shape of this one made me wonder if it had actually been made by hand.
Number 8.
Oh, the small ones are cute. The small ones are cute. Yeah.
Frankly, that's not a bad price for Griswold.
I just
8
need the tag.
these days.
Yeah, I need the tags.
This one had the same markings as before, but here it identified the manufacturer.
I wonder about that one that was on the $1 table.
Gate-marked pans were all over the place, especially stovetop kettles and these spiders. Especially with the wonderful weather today, people were streaming in by the thousands, even before 9 a.m. Yes, the crowds were definitely back.
Wire wheel.
And here I came across the first major cast iron cellar today. Vendors like this offer some amazing sights where you can see rare and vintage cast iron pans that will astound you. And what's also astounding are the prices these pieces are selling for.
$85. Bigger unmarked Wagner. $50.
Right, or if not, I'll give you a buzz and we'll figure it out. Yeah, okay. You know, my goal is to have my tender.
I gotta take a picture of this for Julie. Julie Rice. She's cast iron. Yeah, she loves that. John has a cast. We have one cast iron pan that goes over here.
I don't know.
Yeah, you know that big, nice Griswold Jerry? Yeah, the corner was broken. The Griswold Jerry.
Considering how rare lids are, that might actually be worth it.
The big, no, the big.
Further down the path, this unusual pot showed up. I think it might have fit into a stovetop because of the rim all along the bottom.
Everybody comes here, they never saw one. I haven't sold it, but 125. I really don't know enough about it.
Some areas were fenced off and they didn't open until later in the week. On Saturday, all areas had free admission. This place had a lot of independent and family sellers, and there were some good bargains seen here.
So which one were you interested in?
Obviously, he's talking to you.
Oh, which ones were you interested in?
Those two right there, what can you do on those? The two right
Oh,
front,
right here.
yeah. The one was gonna be 30.
30. How about one there? 49, 70 bucks. For the two of them. Yeah, for 150. All right.
What are you getting on this?
And then, just like that, I saw something that literally made my jaw drop. Good thing I was wearing a mask, or he might have seen the look on my face. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Thank you, sir.
What's more, it was sitting right next to a vintage lodge bunt pan. You'd better believe we'll be seeing more of this. Next to that, even seeing a vintage waffle iron wasn't quite as exciting as it should have been. But at least this stand wasn't charging $200 for a Dutch oven. And still, the amazing sights continued. Making your way through the show will reveal something different and unexpected nearly everywhere, regardless of what your hobby is and whether you're looking for vintage or modern.
Definitely not 1800s.
Needless to say, you'd better bring your walking shoes on a trip to Brimfield because I certainly had a good workout seeing all of these sights. I was trying to keep my budget low, but temptation seemed to strike every few minutes.
This looks familiar.
And here was a husband and wife who were two of the nicest sellers I've met at Brimfield. They had a table full of all sorts of cast iron, and they were selling at prices that were not sky high either.
I've got 450 more to go.
Oh, boy. You know how much weight you must have?
I do know. My back tells me. That's why I'm wearing a back brace 9 times out there.
Century, of course. Sludge. That one. Red Mountain. Century. And a handwritten number 5. Careful.
How much did you say for these?
30 for both.
Nice.
Sell it. Where I don't know.
USA and the handwritten.
No. I just put it away.
Now, a lot of them, see the green ones?
And the astounding sights went on and on. Cast iron prices seemed far more than they should have been, but at least we weren't buying on eBay and there was no shipping cost. And we could handle these pieces ourselves and know we weren't being ripped off by an online scam. These days, that's the best reason to keep going out and doing your own treasure hunting. As you can see, not only was there cast iron in abundance, but just about anything imaginable, no matter what you may be interested in. Businesses could find a lot of useful items at Brimfield, as well as collectors.
Oh, okay. They're talking about that one.
Some cast iron items I couldn't even recognize, and others I was sorely tempted to get, but knew I wouldn't use them, even though it would be nice to own a vintage anvil.
This is a cauldron.
By this time, I was long accustomed to seeing anything by Griswold selling at sky-high prices.
Nice to meet you, honey.
Oh my gosh, she's so cute. Ooh, but check them out. I know.
The food court is just past the halfway point, and after this, the environment began to change a little. There was still a lot of mom-and-pop stands, but there seemed to be more salvage and scrap dealers as we approached the other side of the show. This meant there were more piles of rusty junk, and it also meant there were more opportunities to get a good bargain on a hidden treasure.
And a number 5, ugly. To go with that 8. This could be a single-notch lodge.
You definitely want to make your way to the far end of the show, because not only are there piles of everything you can sort through, but there are still professional vendors out there, including more cast iron vendors.
Don't mind the prices on the Tread carefully. Pickles. Well, you're gonna either a sour plus soup. So, you've given up the coast. Public elementary school. Yeah. Oh, I can only go to cold
Not bad for a vintage lodge.
They can't go.
So you know what I did?
And lo and behold, I saw this guy before.
And only a few yards down, there was yet another stand selling a wall full of polished cast iron. Once again, it seemed as though the show was saving the best for last. Even out here, there were still amazing sights to be seen, and even more buried treasure. Although I was to discover shortly, the best was yet to come. I actually own 2 of these already, but it was still nice to see more of them.
I tried restoring one of these once, and I had absolutely no luck. An Angus broiler? Seen these around. Boy, this is heavy. Definitely wagging from the hole.
I'll do $100 on them. They're French rattan from the 60s and 70s. We had them a lot bigger, more intricate. They sell for $2. And finally, I reached the far side of Brimfield, and it was time to turn around and make my way back. So, I guess you're either the last vendor in Brimfield or the first one, depending on how you're parked.
Yeah, I'm first.
Yeah.
But then, as I was preparing to go home, I came across a sight that once again left me astounded. I had never seen one of these before, and just like the cast iron bunt pan, I couldn't believe it was actually right here. There are many Wagner aluminum roasters that were made from the 1960s to the 1980s, but this was a genuine vintage roaster, and I was utterly shocked to find it. And what shocked me even more was the price they offered for it. So, was it worth it to spend that much on a beautiful, valuable, and especially useful oval roaster made by none other than Wagner? I don't think you need to know what my answer to this offer was. And if there's any better way to end a trip to Brimfield than a score like this, I'd like to hear it. As it turned out, this was a wonderful sightseeing trip with gorgeous weather, friendly people, and some of the most amazing sights a cast iron user could ever see, topped off with not 1 but 2 of the best finds I had ever made. I certainly hope you have a chance to visit the Brimfield Antique Show soon, because no matter what your interests and your hobbies are, you're guaranteed to have a fun time there. And if you're lucky, you may even discover something you'll treasure forever. And as for what I actually bought at Brimfield, I do have to admit I went a bit over my planned budget, although I hope you agree it was worth it. Despite the way prices were often in the stratosphere for cast iron, it's true that you can indeed find good bargains at Brimfield. You just have to do some treasure hunting, some digging and haggling, and frankly, have some good luck. Perhaps the most amazing find was the cast iron bunt pan, which ranks up with the discovery of my 15-gallon cast iron cauldron at Brimfield back in 2015. But that may have been equaled by the discovery of this vintage Wagner aluminum roaster, which I'd never even seen photos of before finding it this weekend. I'm certainly excited by these finds, but I've been to Brimfield many times by now, and most of the time I haven't made life-changing discoveries like this. But it's still a great place to go and spend the day sightseeing and treasure hunting, because you never know what you'll find there. And if you enjoy hunting for vintage cast iron or anything else, a trip to Brimfield is a must. Thank you for watching.